Let's upgrade our thinking. These are, by the way, these are some great topics we're going to have for future shows. So we're going to have a lot of stuff to talk about. All right. Real quick, our Nothing's Impossible challenge. I'm going to throw this out there. This will be a fun one. In 100 words or less, and do this on our Facebook group, in 100 words or less, what would you buy, what would you do, or what would you have for $1 million? If I gave you $1 million, what would you do with it? Right? Write a paragraph, post on our Facebook, Brokers No Joke group page, and title it, What Would You Do with a Cool Million? Right? And the best will be selected, and I'll read your what you would do with it on the show and share with everybody. Because I really want to know, if you guys had that kind of money, what would you do? You know, would it be charity? Would it be help your parents? Would it be buy a house? Would it be education? You know, what would you do if you had access to that money? And this is very important to understand. Lastly, before we get to Caitlin, our guest, is a quick book recommendation. Each episode, I always like to recommend what I call brain food, right? We're always careful. Aren't we careful what we put into our bodies as far as what we eat, and we're trying to stay healthy? Well, what about what we allow into our heads, right? What about what we put into our brains? So here's a book that I've read multiple times. I can personally and highly recommend it. And it's called Rich Dad, Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki. I'll put this on our show notes as well. But he explodes all those myths that you were told that you need to earn a high income to be rich. He challenges your belief that your house is an asset. He shows why parents can't rely on the school system to teach their kids everything they need to know about money and wealth, which we've been talking about that, right? That's why we have this show going. And he helps you understand assets, liabilities, and basically how to get young folks to a place of financial success. And I think it's an amazing book. And if you read, I promise this, if you read 10 pages a night, in 30 days, the book will be complete. How cool is that? 10 pages a night, bam, your book is done, and you're that much wiser and that much more prepared. So definitely take that to heart. Okay. Now I'm very, very excited. I'm very honored to have our guest here with us. Her name is Caitlin Stanton, and she's currently a junior pursuing a degree in electrical and computer engineering at Cornell University. She's a born and bred New Yorker. Caitlin has worked as a software engineer at companies including Qualcomm, IAC, and Oath AOL. She has co-founded several hackathons, which, by the way, I had to look up what those were. But those look like they're a whole lot of fun. She's the founder and president of Cornell's chapter of Alpha Omega Epsilon Engineering Sorority, and she's a vice president for women in computing at Cornell. Very passionate about technology and its potential to change the world. She's passionate about getting some diversity into STEM, which is science, technology, engineering, and math, and keeping a positive mindset no matter how overwhelmed she is. In her rare moments of free time, she does enjoy blogging about her tech experiences, trying new foods, and exploring the great outdoors. Very cool. Caitlin, are you on with us here?
Yeah, I am. Hello. Happy to be here.
Hi, great. How are you today?
Doing well. A little overwhelmed with work this week, but otherwise pushing through.
Awesome. Hey, I think we all feel the pain a little bit, but thank you so much for being on the show. Thank you for taking some time. It's really an honor, and I'm excited to be speaking with you.
Yeah, of course. This is awesome. I'm excited.
Good. And I know our listeners are definitely going to be excited to hear from you too. So I always like, before I get into my main set of questions, I always like to ask our guests the very first question. Since this is a money, wealth, and freedom show, how confident did you feel growing up about your understanding of money? Like on a scale of 1 to 10, what would you say?
I'd say like a solid 5, I'd say. So my family is very solidly middle class, and especially when you live in New York City, that's middle class is kind of stretchy. But I've always been very aware of how much money I've had. I've had small jobs since I was 5. My parents would make me recycle cans to get money, just to have allowance on the side. And I think for me, I always knew that in order to earn money, I had to do something for it. So I would have to babysit my siblings or tutor them or clean up after myself or something like that. But I'd say a 5 because I know how to earn money, but I don't necessarily know how to use it. So that's something I'm figuring out in college, is how to be responsible with the money that I have and not overspend, and make sure I have money for next semester. Or if I want to do something fun, I have money for that, and kind of keeping track of all like my personal finances and everything like that.
Okay. Hey, you know what? You bring up an excellent point. Earning money versus using money. So it's one thing to earn it. It's another thing. What do you do with it once you have it? Right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I sometimes tell the story that I bought a $5,000 T-shirt in college because I didn't understand money.
Oh my
It was the
God.
most expensive T-shirt I ever bought, and it was from a credit card company. So I'll leave it at that. You can imagine how much that probably, that was $5,000 later. I think it was in
Yeah.
the trash at that point, so it wasn't really worth it. Um, okay, no, thank you for that. Yeah. So, and by the way, I appreciate that your parents taught you about earning money at a very young age.
Yeah.
That's so critical that you have to work for it to receive it, as opposed to just give me.
Yeah. Yeah. Because both of my parents, they have public servant jobs for the city of New York. So it's not like we had like a ton. We were comfortable, but we didn't have a ton to go around. So they had to make sure that I didn't feel like I could just like ask for anything and get it, that I had to put some effort into asking for it or working for it, or like having some stake in something before I like earned it, was
Man,
definitely a lesson they tried to teach me when I was younger.
awesome. Kudos to them. That's great. That's great. And good for you too, because that was a very good lesson. So if you wouldn't mind, give us your 2-minute story about where you're from, how you ended up here, how you ended up as a leader in technology and pushing for equal access for women into technology. I'm very curious about that.
Yeah. So I'm from New York City, as I said before. And the great thing about New York is that there's a lot of different schools to attend. So my parents always put an emphasis on education. So I always was in gifted and talented programs or after school activities that kind of harped on my interests. So I was always interested in math and science. And when I was younger, I really wanted to be an architect. I was super into buildings, like walking around New York City. So because of that, they enrolled me in this program called ACE, which stands for Architecture, Construction, and Engineering. It's like a mentorship program with experts in the field, and you work with other high school students to design something, whether it's a building or like a lot or something. And you go through the entire process and then you get to present it. So that was how they wanted to make sure that I understood what architecture meant. And then obviously it turned into me not necessarily wanting to do architecture. So thank God I got enrolled in that, because I realized that I didn't really want to be in that field. I actually enjoyed learning more about how things worked. So I wanted to get into engineering. And so then as soon as my parents heard that I was interested in engineering, because they're both non-technical. So they kind of didn't have an idea of what skill sets I needed for engineering. They kind of just were like, okay, you want to do this? Like, we're going to push you into every program that we know of to get you more into the field. So they heard from someone that coding is a really good skill to know as an engineer. So at that time, Girls Who Code had just started, which is a summer immersion program for girls to learn how to code and kind of build up their confidence in CS. So they had me apply. At that time, it was like a very small program. So I got in, and then I spent the first week kind of not super excited about being in basically what I thought of as like a summer school program. I was not excited to spend 7 weeks learning how to code.
Come on, everyone loves summer school, don't they?
Yeah, like I mean, for me, I was just like, I've worked my butt off during high school. I went to like a specialized high school, so they had a lot of homework and assignments. I was like, summer's my time to relax. I don't need 7 weeks of work again. But oh my God, I was so wrong. Like after the first week, I realized that coding was amazing, that the program itself really educated me about coding, because I had done a couple of CS classes in high school, but I wasn't really excited about them. But Girls Who Code was the reason I got like very hooked on it. And then from there, because I think also I got my CS experience from a diversity oriented program, I just became very involved in diversity initiatives, got very involved in tech, went to new classes, went to hackathons, obviously started majoring in a tech major at Cornell. So it kind of snowballed from there, and here I am today.
Wow, very, very cool. That is amazing. Especially, so what exactly about coding, I guess, caused that switch to flip? I mean, what attracts you to coding? Is it what application, I suppose?
Yeah. So for me, I kind of want to connect it back to what I did in high school. So in high school, they taught us the fundamentals of coding. So there are things like variables and conditional statements and loops. And those are the building blocks of every program. So they taught us about that. They taught us how it worked, but you kind of didn't have any visual output of what would it look like, or had no idea of how it would be applied. It was just learning the theory behind computer science, which is definitely very interesting. But for me, I was like, okay, that's cool. And I kind of just like put it on the back burner. But Girls Who Code, instead of just teaching us the concepts and then moving on to the next thing, they taught us the concepts and then allowed us to visualize what it would be used in. So I'd say the first project that got me really hooked on coding was we were working with Python, and we were asked to control this robot, this physical robot, and make it draw a polygon. So first we started with a square, and then we started with like an n-sided polygon. And being able to use those building blocks and then program this robot and have it move around and draw a hexagon or something was really cool, because then I could see, okay, this loop is increasing this variable by 1 or whatever, but now I get to see it actually play out. And I can see, okay, this is the line where my code isn't working because now the robot is turning around for some reason and it's not supposed to do that. Or now I know that my program works and I can add this feature to it. So for me, that was like the first project where I was able to tangibly see this is what my code can do. And then I understood like the repercussions of being able to write code and like the possibilities of what you can actually build, which really got me excited.
Very cool. So it wasn't just like looking at the matrix, you actually got to see the results and you got to see the final product. Yeah. And that's what gets all of us excited when it comes to any project. You always want to have that vision or the visualization of what am I doing? All this work I'm doing, what is it going to become? And that's really cool. So I have to ask you, so just for our listeners' sake, what is a hackathon?
Yeah.
A short description of that.
Yeah, you're not the first person to ask. When I first started getting into hackathons, my parents were very concerned. They thought I was going to end up on some sort of government list, and I assured them, no, I will not. So it's a coding competition is what I'd like to describe that. So you're given a specified amount of time, whether it's a day, whether it's a weekend, whether it's like several months, it really depends. And typically hackathons are an in-person coding competition where for that duration of time, you work by yourself or with a team, depending on what you really want to do, and you build something. So some hackathons have a prompt where you have to build something that's related to social good or mental health or animal health or something like that. But most hackathons have an open theme where they're just like, okay, have something ready by the end of the competition and be able to present it to our judges, and then we'll choose the best game or best mobile application or best beginner hack or something like that. So the whole point of the event is to come together in these teams, learn new skills, and then put them together and prototype something that will actually solve an issue or maybe make someone laugh or like prove some sort of point. And then you leave having like gained those skills over the course of like a weekend, which is like an absurdly short amount of time, but the environment of the hackathon makes that all possible.
Yeah, and it sounds like a very, very fun community. So I'm very intrigued by your efforts to bring people together, especially in times where we're seeing a lot of extreme political division. How are you doing this? How are you getting people to come together around this common, notice their commonalities and forget some of their differences?
Yeah, I feel like a lot of what hackathons boil down to are ideas and issues. And most of the concepts that people come up with are pertaining to issues that affect us like as just humans, whether it's like the flow of information or something bigger like world hunger or something like that, where all these issues affect us not because of our political beliefs or just our ideological beliefs, but because the fact that we're existing on this planet and these are issues that are relevant to everybody. So I think that's the really cool part about a hackathon is that they elicit people to kind of contribute to the solving of these issues. And then when it comes to people coming together and kind of disregarding their differences and kind of working together on that, something that I personally try to do in my everyday life is just listen to their backgrounds. I obviously have my own political beliefs and ideological beliefs, but that's because of the way I was raised, the people I've been around, the programs I've been a part of, and that's shaped me for who I am in my thought process. But when it comes to someone who's the complete opposite of me, maybe they're from a different geographical region, or they have a different upbringing, or they have a different gender identity or racial identity or something like that, they're going to have different opinions. And so for me, it's less about trying to convince them, although obviously I think